This true story was sent to me by Daniel from Ohio, and I'm sharing it exactly as he experienced it. Every terrifying detail, every moment of dread, just as he told me. If you're watching alone, make sure the doors are locked, because you never know who's watching from the shadows. Here is what he wrote me. I installed the security cameras 3 days after someone tried my car door. I remember the sound more than anything, a soft, metallic clack, like someone testing the lock with patience, not panic. When I checked in the morning, there were muddy footprints near the driveway, deep enough to show weight, the toes long and splayed like whoever made them hadn't worn shoes. Nothing was stolen, nothing broken. Still, the sight of those prints made my stomach tighten in a way I couldn't explain. I live alone in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, where porch lights glow all night and neighbors wave but never ask questions. It's the kind of place where danger feels fictional, like something that only happens on the news. The first alert came at 2:11 a.m. My phone buzzed sharply on the nightstand, vibrating against the wood until it sounded louder than it should have. Motion detected, backyard camera. I remember feeling annoyed more than scared. We get raccoons, stray cats, sometimes deer. I opened the app half asleep, expecting glowing eyes or a flicking tail. Instead, I saw a man. He was standing at the edge of my backyard, just beyond the reach of the porch light. Tall, too still. He faced the camera directly, like he knew exactly where it was mounted. He wasn't wearing a hoodie or mask, just dark clothes that blended into the tree line behind him. His arms hung limp, fingers slightly curled, like he'd stopped moving mid-thought. He didn't sway, didn't blink. The timestamp advanced second by second while he remained frozen. And the longer I stared, the more my chest ached, as if my body understood something my brain refused to accept. I watched for nearly a full minute, my thumb hovering uselessly over the screen, waiting for proof that he was human. Any shift, any breath, any sign of life, nothing. The silence in my bedroom felt heavy, broken only by my own breathing, which sounded too loud, too fast. Then the video stuttered. The image warped, pixelated, and for a split second the man's face seemed closer than it should have been, stretched toward the lens in a way that made my stomach lurch. The feed cut to black, then snapped back. He was gone. No retreating footsteps. No movement caught on camera. Just empty grass, swaying slightly, as if something had passed through it without touching the ground. I didn't sleep after that. Every creak of the house felt deliberate. Every shadow felt occupied. By morning, I told myself it was a prank or a drunk neighbor wandering through yards. I didn't call the police. I told myself I would if it happened again. That night, I lay awake with the phone clutched in my hand, eyes fixed on the dark ceiling. At 2:13 a.m., the alert buzzed again. Same camera, same location. When I opened the feed, the man was there, standing in the exact same spot, in the exact same posture, staring directly into the lens as if he'd never left at all. That was the moment fear stopped feeling distant and started feeling personal. By the fourth night, I stopped pretending this was coincidence. The alerts came with a precision that felt intentional, like a ritual being observed. 2:10 a.m. one night, 2:12 the next, 2:14 after that, never earlier, never later, always after I'd fallen asleep deeply enough for my body to be slow and stupid with fear. Always the backyard camera, never the front door, never the sides, never the driveway where someone should logically pass through. And every single time, it was the same man. I stopped watching live feeds because something about the delay between my eyes and his presence felt safer, like a thin sheet of glass between us. Instead, I saved the recordings and watched them during the day, sunlight spilling across my kitchen table, as if that could somehow disinfect what I was seeing. That was when I noticed the change. Slowing the footage down, frame by frame, made my skin prickle. The man wasn't just appearing, he was advancing. Not suddenly, not dramatically. A foot, closer each night. Maybe less. Enough to be deniable. Enough to be missed by anyone not obsessively measuring shadows and fence posts. On the first night, he'd barely been distinguishable from the trees. By the sixth, the camera caught the edge of his feet on my lawn. Bare feet. Pale. The toes bent slightly into the grass, like they were testing whether the ground was real. When I zoomed in, I noticed dark streaks along his calves. Thin, uneven lines that looked like dried blood or old scabs torn open again and again. I paused the video and felt something crawl up my spine, the sick realization that he wasn't drifting closer accidentally. He was counting on me to notice. I finally called the police, my voice shaking despite how hard I tried to sound reasonable. They came in the afternoon when the yard looked harmless, when birds hopped through the grass where he'd stood for hours at night. They walked the perimeter, shined flashlights into the tree line, asked if I had enemies, if I'd upset anyone recently. No footprints, no damaged fences. No neighbors had seen anything, though one officer mentioned a strange smell near the back trees, metallic and sour, but it was gone before he finished the sentence. They suggested adjusting the camera sensitivity and told me to call again if it happened. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, fully clothed, the room lit dimly by my phone screen, staring at the open doorway. At 2:12 a.m., the alert buzzed anyway. I didn't open the app. I couldn't. I just listened, ears straining for footsteps, for breathing, for the sound of skin brushing against walls. The house stayed silent. Too silent, like it was holding its breath. Morning came without relief. When I checked the recording, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The man had stayed nearly 10 minutes this time. 10 full minutes of unmoving attention. And at the very end of the clip, just before the camera cut off, he did something new. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his head, not tilting it sideways, but angling it upward, eyes locking onto something above the lens, my bedroom window. Sleeping in my bedroom after that night, the idea of lying beneath a window he'd stared into made my skin crawl, like the glass itself had been violated. I dragged blankets to the couch and left every light on, the house glowing like a warning beacon. A baseball bat rested against my leg, slick with sweat from my palm, and my phone stayed plugged in, camera app open, brightness turned all the way up. I told myself this was control, that if he came closer, if he tried something, I'd see him first. The alert came anyway. When I forced myself to watch the recording later, I realized he was close enough now that the camera captured details I wished I'd never seen. His face was narrow, the skin stretched tight as if pulled back too often, thin lips pressed into a patient line. His eyes were wrong, too dark, swallowing the infrared glow instead of reflecting it, like empty holes punched into his skull. His clothes weren't just dark, they were ancient, fibers separating at the seams, blotched with stains that looked layered, old over older, like he'd worn them through years that never washed off. And then there was the smile. Not wide, not dramatic, just a subtle upward pull at the corners of his mouth, restrained and deliberate. A smile meant for someone specific, me, as if he knew I was watching later, replaying every second, and wanted to leave something behind that would rot in my thoughts. I couldn't remember falling asleep, but I woke up just before dawn with my muscles locked and my throat raw, as if I'd been screaming without sound. The proof came in the morning. Near the porch steps, pressed deep into the wet soil, was a footprint, bare, elongated, the toes spread unnaturally wide. The heel sank so far it formed a small pool of water, as if he'd stood there for a long time, rocking slowly back and forth. There were faint drag marks beside it, like something heavy had been shifted, repositioned, waiting. The police returned, their tone different this time. They photographed the print, measured it, whispered to each other like they didn't want me to hear. One of them suggested I stay somewhere else. I nodded and lied without hesitation. That night, nothing happened. No alert, no buzz. I checked the app compulsively, my eyes burning as midnight passed. Then 1, then 2. Relief felt wrong, too light, too sudden. At 2:47 a.m., my phone vibrated hard enough to rattle on the table. Motion detected. Living room. My blood went cold as I opened the feed. The camera showed the couch, the coffee table, the front door, unchanged. Then I noticed what the frame cut off. Just at the edge, barely visible, was a shoulder, cloth dark and frayed, skin pale and stretched. He wasn't in the backyard anymore. He had crossed the distance I thought still existed, and whatever he was doing now, he decided cameras didn't matter anymore. I don't remember deciding to run. One moment I was staring at my phone, frozen on that living room feed, trying to understand how a human body could stand that close to a ceiling camera without being fully visible. The next moment, I was locked inside my bathroom. The door slammed shut so hard the mirror rattled. I shoved towels against the gap beneath it and pressed my weight into the wood, knees shaking so violently they knocked together. The living room feed went dark. Not cut, smothered, like something had passed a hand over the lens. Then, one by one, the other cameras dropped offline, each disconnection chiming softly through my phone until the house felt suddenly blind. I sat there in the dark, breathing shallow, ears straining for any sound that would confirm he was real. But there was nothing. No footsteps crossing tile, no hinges creaking, no breath on the other side of the door. The silence was worse than noise. It felt staged, as if the house itself were cooperating. Minutes stretched thin and sharp. My arms ached from bracing the door, sweat running cold down my spine. I started to wonder if I'd imagined it, if fear had finally snapped something inside me. That thought died the instant I heard it. A faint, dry scrape against the bathroom door, so soft it could have been mistaken for settling wood. Then it happened again, slower, intentional. A fingernail dragging downward, carving a shallow line through the paint. I tasted bile and clamped my hand over my mouth as the sound repeated, each pass longer than the last, like he was learning the texture of the door, memorizing it. The scrape stopped just inches from the floor. I waited for footsteps to retreat, for anything that suggested distance. Instead, something leaned close enough that the wood flexed inward. I heard breath then, not fast, not strained, but controlled, leaking through teeth that were far too near. At first it wasn't language, just wet air and a faint clicking sound, like a tongue tapping against the roof of a mouth. Then the whisper formed, pressed flat against the door, intimate and calm. You never waved back. The word slid under my skin and stayed there, heavier than any threat. I don't know how long I remained crouched on that cold tile, muscles locked, heart stuttering against my ribs. Eventually, gray light seeped through the frosted bathroom window, and with it came stillness. The scraping didn't return. The whisper didn't repeat itself. When I finally opened the door, my legs barely held me. The house was empty, no broken locks, no forced entry. Nothing. Disturbed. Except the cameras. Every single one had been turned by hand to face the wall, their mounts twisted at unnatural angles. Every one but the backyard camera. That one was still active, still recording, and it wasn't pointing outside anymore. It was aimed directly at the sliding glass door, perfectly centered, from inside the house. I moved out before the sun was fully up. I didn't pack so much as flee. I grabbed a backpack, my wallet, my phone, and left everything else exactly where it was, as if disturbing the house any further might anger whatever had already claimed it. Clothes stayed in drawers. Photos stayed on walls. The couch still smelled like my sweat and fear. I stayed with a friend at first, sleeping in short, panicked bursts, jerking awake at every sound. A week later, I signed a short-term lease across town. A third-floor apartment with no yard, no trees, no shadows close enough to hide a man. I replaced my phone, changed my number, installed new cameras, new locks, new routines. I never walked the same way twice. I never slept with lights off. For a while, nothing happened. No alerts, no glitches, no silhouettes frozen in frame. The quiet felt fragile, like thin ice beneath my feet. But days passed, then weeks. My body slowly unlearned the constant tension. I started believing the thing had been tied to that house, that place, that backyard. I told myself predators don't follow. They wait. I was wrong. Last night, my phone buzzed on the nightstand at 2:11 a.m., the exact same minute it always had. I remember noticing that detail before fear even set in, like my brain wanted proof before it broke. I don't have a backyard anymore. I'm 3 floors up. The alert wasn't from any camera I remembered installing. It took me a few seconds to recognize the name. Bedroom. A camera I'd mounted weeks ago and never once checked. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. When the feed loaded, my breath left me in a sound I didn't recognize as human. The camera showed my bedroom door from inside the room, open, wider than I ever leave it. The hall beyond was dark, but standing in the doorway was a man, perfectly still, occupying the frame the way a stain occupies fabric. Effortless, permanent, tall, thin. His clothes were darker now, wetter, clinging to angles that looked sharper than they should have been. The skin of his face sagged in places, pulled tight in others, like it no longer fit correctly. His mouth curved into that same restrained smile, patient and knowing. I realized then that the cameras hadn't been for security at all. They were invitations. This time, he wasn't looking at the lens. His eyes were locked on me, reflecting the faint glow of my phone screen as I lay frozen beneath the sheets. The smile widened by the smallest degree, as if he'd been waiting for me to understand. The alert chimed again, motion detected, and I realized with a sick certainty that it wasn't detecting him entering the room. It was detecting him stepping closer to the bed. I don't remember what happened after that. When I woke up, I was on my couch, afternoon light filling the room. I don't know how long I'd been out, but my body felt heavier. Wrong. In the mirror, I noticed a small mark on my neck, too precise to be accidental. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe I just needed someone else to know, and I pray I don't see him tonight, ever again. I'm sharing this on behalf of Lucas because he asked me to. He said he couldn't keep carrying this alone anymore, and that if people were going to hear it, they needed to hear it exactly the way he lived it, through his fear, not just my voice. So let's try to dive into Lucas's lived experience. My name is Lucas Reed. I live in Ashland, Oregon, and I don't know why I'm writing this now, only that I can't stop my hands from shaking long enough to put the phone down. For years, I told myself what happened was just a sick joke that went too far, something my brain twisted after the fact. But tonight, the fear came back. A few hours ago, my phone lit up with a voicemail notification. No number, no timestamp. When I unlocked the screen, it vanished like it had never been there. That small moment cracked something open in me. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't pull in enough air, and I knew I was running out of time to pretend this never happened. If anything happens to me after this, I need someone else to know the truth. I need you to hear what I heard, exactly the way it happened, because once you do, you'll understand why I've slept with my phone face down for years, and why even silence feels loud now. We were 16 and bored, killing time in Jake's basement on a Friday night, the kind where you feel untouchable just because nothing bad has happened yet. Evan was supposed to be there, but texted that he felt sick and stayed home. Jake laughed and said we should prank call him anyway, just to mess with him, and none of us argued. The basement smelled like damp carpet and stale soda, and the single bulb above us hummed softly, flickering just enough to hurt your eyes. Jake put his phone on speaker and dialed. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. We leaned in, ready to leave some stupid message, then froze. The voicemail wasn't Evan's voice. It was us, the low buzz of the light, Marcus coughing, the sound of my sneaker scraping concrete. When Jake muttered, "Okay, that's not funny," the voicemail repeated his words back, perfectly synced, like a reflection with no delay. My stomach dropped when I realized it wasn't playing something recorded earlier. It was recording us now. Jake hung up hard, his face drained of color, forcing a laugh that died instantly. Then his phone vibrated. New voicemail. From Evan. Time-stamped now. He hesitated before pressing play, and in that second, I knew whatever answered us hadn't finished listening yet. I don't remember how long we stood there, staring at Jake's phone like it had turned into something alive. The basement suddenly felt too big, like the walls had moved back and left us alone in a dark room. The air was colder, and every sound seemed louder. Our breathing, the hum of the bulb, the soft creak of the stairs above us. Marcus tried to laugh it off, but his laugh came out thin and shaky. Jake kept looking at the screen like it might give him a reason to pretend this was a joke. When he finally pressed play, the voicemail started with the usual tone, but the next sound didn't match anything in the world. It was our voices, but wrong, slower, heavier, like someone was dragging their words through mud. The voicemail replayed the exact moment we'd just heard, except the sound in the background was different, a faint, steady scratching, like fingernails scraping across drywall. It didn't come from the basement. It sounded like it came from inside the house, behind the walls, getting closer with every second. Jake whispered, "Do you hear that?" And the voicemail answered him, using his own voice, perfect and clear. "You shouldn't be here." The words weren't just creepy, they were precise, like the voice knew us, like it knew where we were standing. My stomach turned when I realized the voicemail wasn't recording us. It was watching us, and then it started speaking back. The worst part was the way the sound didn't stay inside the phone. Even after Jake shut it off, the whispering continued, like the room itself was repeating what we'd heard. It felt like someone had left a radio playing under the floorboards, and the signal was slowly getting stronger. The basement door, which we were sure had been closed, was now cracked open just enough for a thin strip of darkness to leak in, and I felt that darkness press against my skin like cold water. The voicemail didn't stop with words. It started describing us. It mentioned the scuff on my shoe, the way Jake's fingers trembled, the sweat beading on Marcus's forehead. It described things we hadn't said out loud, like it had been standing behind us listening. Then it said something that made my blood run cold. "You look like you've been hiding something." I knew it wasn't a guess. It was an accusation, a warning. Jake's phone buzzed again. Another voicemail, from Evan, time-stamped now. Jake didn't want to play it, but he did, because none of us could move. The moment the voicemail began, the basement went quiet. Too quiet, like the house was holding its breath. A robotic greeting played. Then Evan's voice started speaking, but it wasn't Evan speaking. It was the voicemail speaking through him, saying, in a calm tone that didn't belong to any of us, "You're not supposed to hear this." Then it added something that made my skin crawl so hard, I felt it in my bones. "You're already in the voicemail." After that voicemail, we didn't talk for a long time. Not because we didn't have anything to say, but because we were afraid of what saying anything might do. The air in the basement felt tight, like it had been sealed, and every breath sounded too loud. Jake finally broke the silence with the question we'd all been trying to avoid. "What the hell is happening?" His voice cracked on the last word, and I could see his hands shaking even in the dim light. Marcus tried to laugh, but it came out thin and forced. "Maybe Evan's phone is hacked," he said, but his eyes kept drifting toward the basement door, as if he expected someone to step through it. I wanted to believe we were just teenagers messing around, but the way the voicemail had used our voices, describing our bodies, felt like something else entirely, something that had been waiting, listening, and now knew where we were. Then Jake did something none of us expected. He opened his phone and searched for the voicemail again, like he thought it might still be there, like proof could protect us. But it was gone, not deleted, gone. The call log showed the call to Evan, but there was no voicemail entry, no timestamp, no audio file. It was as if the phone had never received anything, as if the night had been scrubbed from reality. That should have relieved us, but instead, the basement felt heavier, like a weight had settled on our chests. Marcus whispered, "It's hiding." Jake swallowed hard and said, "Maybe it's not about the voicemail." He pulled up the map app and typed in Evan's number, because we all knew it, even if we didn't know his address. The app searched, then returned a single result, a blank dot with a name we didn't recognize. The letters looked wrong, slightly stretched, as if pulled through something sharp. The light flickered, and for a second I saw a shadow crawl across the ceiling, like something was moving above the floorboards. Then the map refreshed, and a notification appeared. New voicemail received from this location. The number wasn't Evan's, or anyone's. It was a string of digits that didn't fit any phone system, time-stamped now. The preview made my stomach drop. "We're closer than you think." Jake's hand shook as he opened the voicemail, and before the sound played, I saw the fear in his eyes. The message began with the robotic greeting. Then a voice far away spoke, calm and patient, like it had been waiting for years. "You found the place," it said. Beneath the words came a faint scrape, like metal dragged across concrete, slow and deliberate, like a knife being sharpened in the dark. The voice continued, "You don't know what you've stepped into. You don't even know what you are." My hands went numb. Marcus started breathing fast, like he was trying to swallow air. The voice finished with one last line before the voicemail ended. "You're in the basement, you're in the voicemail, and you're in the map." The room went quiet again, but the silence felt wrong, like something was waiting just beyond the basement door, waiting for us to make the next mistake. Jake's phone buzzed again, and the sound hit the room like a slap. The screen showed the same impossible number, and the notification preview wasn't a sentence anymore. It was a single word, typed in all caps, "Here." Marcus backed away from the couch like the phone itself was a living thing. The basement suddenly smelled of wet earth and something metallic, like pennies crushed under a shoe, and the air felt damp against my skin, as if the room had been sealed for days. Jake's hands were white around the phone. "We're done," he whispered, but he didn't hang up. He pressed play again, and the voicemail began as if nothing had changed, with the same robotic tone that always comes before a message. But the sound that followed wasn't Evan's voice, and it wasn't ours. It was a low, calm voice that sounded like it was speaking from inside the walls. It said, "You came back," and the words hit harder than any insult because the voice matched Marcus's tone exactly, even the tiny pause he always makes before he speaks. The basement light flickered, and for a second I saw a shadow move across the ceiling like a hand dragging itself along the rafters. The voicemail continued, and the background noise shifted. It wasn't the hum of the bulb anymore. It was the sound of something breathing, slow, wet, and deliberate. It was close enough that I felt it in my chest, like someone pressing their mouth against my ribs. The voicemail didn't just replay what we were doing, it answered us. When Marcus swallowed hard, the recording added a low, wet rasp, like someone exhaling through a throat full of fluid. When Jake's hand trembled, the voicemail matched it with a soft, scratching noise, like nails dragged across wood. It was like the phone was listening to our bodies and translating them into audio. I looked down at my own arm and saw fresh scratches, thin and red, as if someone had dragged a key across my skin without touching me. Marcus started to cry quietly, and the voicemail answered with his sob, but deeper, like it came from a throat that had swallowed something heavy. Then the voice spoke, not Evan's, not ours, but something that sounded like all of us at once. "You found the place," it said calmly. "You're in the voicemail now." The room went quiet, but the silence felt wrong, like the air had stopped moving on purpose. Then Jake's phone lit up again, and a new voicemail. Notification appeared. Same impossible number, same timestamp. Now. The preview showed a line of text that made my stomach drop. "I'm recording you." Jake stared at the screen, and I saw his eyes widen as if he could already hear the next message, like the voicemail was waiting for us to move so it could keep talking. I'm the only one who made it home. The walk from Jake's house that night felt like I was moving through water. Every sound was too loud, my footsteps, my breath, the distant hum of traffic, like the world was trying to remind me I was still alive. I didn't go straight to my room. I stood in the kitchen with the lights off and stared at the phone on the counter like it was a living thing. I kept thinking I'd see a new voicemail pop up, like it was waiting for me to let my guard down. But nothing happened. For the first time in days, I felt a small, stupid relief. Maybe it was over. Maybe we were just a bunch of idiots who had triggered something we didn't understand, and now it had lost interest. I told myself that until I fell asleep on the couch, fully clothed, my phone in my hand, like a shield. When I woke up, my throat was raw, and my skin felt like it was crawling. I didn't call Jake or Marcus. I didn't call Evan. I didn't want to give, whatever it was, another chance to hear my voice. But I couldn't stop thinking about the map, the dot that didn't exist, the way it had moved, like it was following us. It was as if it had attached itself to our lives, and it was only a matter of time before it caught up. The next morning, the police showed up at my door. They were polite, but their eyes were tired, like they'd already decided this was just a missing person case with no answers. I told them everything. I told them about the voicemail, the basement, the location that didn't exist. I told them about the sound of metal scraping and the voice saying we were in the map. They listened like I was describing a dream. Then they asked about Evan's phone. I told them I didn't know where it was, and my stomach dropped when I realized I actually didn't. It was like the poo memory of it had been erased. A week later, the news reported that Evan's phone had been found crushed in the woods, battery removed. The police said Jake and Marcus had disappeared. They asked me questions I couldn't answer. I deleted every voicemail, every call log. I changed my number. For a while, it worked. Until tonight. I got a voicemail notification a few minutes ago. No caller ID, no timestamp, just one saved message. When I played it, I heard my own voice whispering, "Please don't answer." Then my phone rang, and before I could stop myself, the call answered on its own. I heard breathing on the other end, slow, wet, and close, like someone was leaning over the phone and smiling. Then the voice spoke, in my voice, calm and familiar, like it had been waiting inside me the whole time. "Hello," it said. "We've been trying to reach you."